everyone. We all know that we belong to a superior race, species, don't we? Homo sapien. It's a Latin term. Homo means human, sapien means wise. The stage of being human in the wisest form is the Homo sapien. In the study of 1868 in France, it was concluded that man or a human became Homo sapien some 60,000 years ago in the European continent and 40,000 years ago in the Asian continent. So from all these so-called thousands and thousands of years, as superior humans, what are we doing? Fighting for gender inequality. So, dear students, I am here to discuss feminism and feministic theories in brief, since it's a part of literary criticism today. So, before knowing what is feminism, I must tell you that in the year 1837 in France, a person who was a philosopher called Charles Fournier came up with this term. He was the founder of this term, feminism in France. He made this study of feminism as a kind of an umbrella under which there could be various areas of study which involved woman as a concept. Now, Gloria Steinem, a US-based teacher and a social activist, is called as the mother of feminism. So it all began, the movement all began somewhere in the mid-19th century, and then it was, people were too much involved into it in the 20th century, and Eileen Showalter was the one who gave proper momentum to this movement. Now, coming back to feminism. Feminism is a political, social and an economic movement trying to establish equal rights and legal protection for women. Look at this definition. It has two important phrases. One, equal rights. Second, legal protection for women. So rights, there are three very important rights which the movement has been focusing upon. The voting rights, property rights, and then personal rights, which we'll be discussing soon. And then when we come to legal protection, we have four important things: discrimination, oppression, objectifying and stereotyping. What is discrimination of women, which is a very important aspect of the study of feminism? It especially deals with women in their workplaces. How a woman's self-respect is harmed by her co-workers, the men, whether they are the employers, other people, or her friends who are working with her. Discrimination is trying to make her an inferior gender. This is the suffering that she has to suffer, whether it is an institution, an office, an industry, a business firm, or it could be with the lower working class people also. So to get rid of this discrimination was the first agenda. Now second, coming to oppression. Oppression has various meanings, but when we fix it to the study of feminism, we have the word threat. The physical, the spiritual, the mental threat that is imposed upon a woman by a man comes under the study of oppression. What is objectifying of a woman? With the increased popularity of media, photography, we have the portrayal of a woman in her complete ugliness without her consent. This is how we make woman an object of fun or entertainment where her interests are not involved. This is objectifying of a woman. Now what is stereotyping? Right from the family system to the education to her employment, she is treated as an inferior sex. For example, I still face this in rural places. When parents come with their girls to admit them to colleges, immediately they tell me that girls are meant for arts and the boys are meant for commerce, science and management. It is parents who decide what criteria should be imposed upon her, or what branch should be useful for her according to them. So the discrimination, even the field of treating her as a student, is also seen in stereotyping. These are the 4 areas where feminism as a study is focusing upon even today from past many years. Now, feminism did not just evolve. I told you it was with Ellen Showalter that it got a proper momentum, but then we as students or research scholars have to look at feminism from 3 points of view. It has 3 waves of development: 18th century, 19th century, and even up to the 21st century, involving the whole of 20th century. So before we jump into these phases or these waves of feministic studies, we have to pay tribute to a few people who gave their days and nights as social activists, upholding feministic issues and trying to give women their human rights. Now it was Sojourn Truth, a white woman, and it was Chandra Mohanty, an Asian, and it was Elise Walker, an African. We should always study these 3 before getting into the study of feminism. Apart from these, there are many women who involved in all these 3 waves. We have Pizan, we have Agrippi, and we have Anna Bradstreet. So these 6 people that I have mentioned here are a must for the study of feminism. Now let us briefly study what happened in all these waves. So in the first wave, we started somewhere from 1840s onwards, and it ended up to almost 1940s. Women activists stood for their rights. As I told you, there were 3 categories of rights: voting rights, which began in America and which ended up with the 1928 Act, which gave voting rights for women above 21 years. So this was a long journey for them to get it. And then their property rights, that a woman should have share in her father's property as well as in her husband's property, and we are still fighting for this right. However, justice is being given, we still have big issues in this matter. And when it comes to personal rights, it's quite a sensitive issue. Woman fights for her rights of her body as her independent entity, whether it is right for abortion, rights of reproduction, and rights of marriage, so on and so forth, which are intricate studies of sociology as well as cultural studies. So this is what happened in the first wave. And when Sojourn Truth was too much involved in this first wave. And then coming to the second wave, it was with the publication of Warner's publication, The Second Sex. This book created a kind of a revolution in the second wave, wherein we come across a strange statement. A woman was not born as a woman. She was made one in the process of her survival. So such shocking and these statements create a kind of goosebump on people who read. And almost the second wave was a kind of a violent rebellion, but it could not bring so much of success to women's fight or women's movement. So it slowly moved into the third wave, wherein we have again a kind of a statement called "Women are people. You are not supposed to kill them like insects." So this is how first, second and third wave came developing. Now when it comes to the third wave, I must tell that the second wave began from 1940s to 1960s and 70s. And the third wave almost began from 1990s and up to 2014. We had a very vast study of feminism, and it is here that we come across a name called Malala Yousafzai, a teenager. She is the first teenager women activist who faced a horrible life in Pakistan. Let me brief her out. She was born in Pakistan in a family which ran schools for both. They ran co-education kind of schools, and her father was a humanitarian. She learned so much from her father that she encouraged the education of girls in her area, And very soon she started giving speeches for the BBC and for many journals of the Western countries. And overnight, with all her activist programs, she became a very popular figure, and she used to carry girls herself to the schools. And that was the Taliban territory then. And one day when she was going in a bus along with her friends to her school, she was shot by a Taliban in her head. And she had to struggle so much with her life. She was operated thrice in her head. And then ultimately she survived. And looking at all her efforts at that age, she was hardly 16, at that age, it was decided that she should be given Nobel Peace Prize. And she was the first girl to be given such a prize at that age, and that too for holding feminism into her hands. These kind of things are seen, the Malaysian feministic movement, the Korean feministic movement, all fall into this third wave. So this is how it began. And now, it doesn't end there. We talk of a kind of a patriarchy these days. So that doesn't mean that the word patriarchy was not prevalent in the previous centuries. But then with the coming of the 19th century industrial revolution and the built up capitalism kind of lifestyle, gave rise to this patriarchy again. So many women activists of the 20th century gave their impetus to the study of patriarchy. So patriarchy is quite a word in vogue today. We speak much about it. So what is this patriarchy and a little bit of matriarchy? We'll have to have a historical background to that. Now going back to man as a hunter, we are going somewhere to the Stone Ages. Man as a hunter, that is what he was called as. It was decided that a man should go for hunting to earn his food, and by the time he comes back, the woman should look after her household. This they called as division of labor. It was not in any way based on the sex part. Because she is a woman, she has to be at home. No, because we see even in those ages, women being actively involved in pot making or in farming activities. It was not that. Whenever she had leisure, she used to involve herself in other economic activities. But then there was a kind of a wonderful understanding between them that they had developed such a kind of a division of labor. So it was all good with man and woman, and there was nothing called as gender inequality. They had a beautiful family system, and that is what we see in our epics also, which I'll come later. And when did it all start slowly? What happened with the increase in the density of population throughout the world? Woman was looked at as a resource. Maybe due to the fall of the ratio in women, the man started looking at her as a resource, because many men fighting for one woman. So this kind of a fight began with the density of population. Then man started imposing his physical capacities over the other man to win the hand of the woman. And in the process, he wanted to threaten the woman to be under him, because he had won her. She had turned into a kind of commodity, and he started imposing a kind of a threat over her so that she be at home, and once if she goes outside, she may fall into some other's hands. So it was a kind of security, and it was a kind of a possession on the psyche of a man, that this kind of a development happened slowly. I am talking about centuries and centuries history. This is not today's or yesterday's matter, but I've gone back, very much back. And then what happened? Slowly coming to the sensible eras, what we call after the Dark Ages, somewhere in 15th and 16th centuries, we see that till then, till 15th or 16th centuries, we can see that the property or the wealth that a family possessed was equally into the hands of man and woman, and also into the hands of children. They were sensible enough to own the property, and there was a kind of equality not only in the gender system, but also when it comes to property. But then this kind of stability shook after the Dark Ages. Man started feeling himself, or man started acting himself to be the head of the family. See this, how the phrases have changed. And he not only owned the members in the family, but also he owned the entire property himself. Whatever money was there in the family was to be under him, and woman was turned to be a reproductive tool, or a kind of the phrase that we don't use today, a housewife. So to the extent, we study even this thing today also, when a child or when a boy or a girl in the school or college is given a certain form to fill, and you have two sections, two columns there, father's occupation and mother's occupation. And you write the father's occupation, whatever it is, and when it comes to mother's occupation, the child doesn't know what to do because she is a homemaker. But even today we consider that the toil that she does, hours of toil that she does inside the house and also outside the house, is not counted, because it is considered as household work and it does not need any skill, talent, education or literacy. So that column is filled as nil. So this is what started somewhere even in the 15th and 16th centuries, and this was there. It was all digested by women, and still she was carrying up with all these things. There were some fights, some rebellions here and there, but it had not taken a kind of a momentum with regards to her self-respect and with regards to her rights in all these things. But with the coming of capitalism in 19th century, it was a kind of a sudden revival in her life that she started studying patriarchy very seriously. Now, it has become a kind of a debatable topic that even after capitalism, she did not have any rights into the wealth of the family, or she did not have a right to speech or a right to education. So 19th century laid the firm grounds for feministic approach. This is all. Now what we have, this is some brief study about feminism and how to look at it. And if we come today, we have feministic writers in literature. Our focus is on literary theories more than the study of feminism. So if we look at the English literature from Jane Austen, we come to Virginia Woolf, and then today even we have Michelle Obama, we have Annie Bourret, and many other people who have taken up this object, irrespective of what field they belong. They are still writing and speaking on the feministic approach. And if you come back to Indian English literature, from Kamala Das, you have Arundhati Roy, you have Shobha De, and you have Jhumpa Lahiri today. Jhumpa Lahiri is a great research topic today. My students love that topic, comparative study. So this is how there has been a kind of a feministic approach in the field of literature also. Then what are feministic theories? Feministic theories are not related to just one field or the other. We have these feministic theories, of course, as I told you, literary criticism. What do we do when feminism is connected to literature? What do we do here? Women, how have they evolved as writers, or how have they evolved as artists? And how have men written about women in their books, and how have women taken them? And now, keeping men aside, women want to write about themselves independently in the book, so that women don't want to be addressed or written about from the second hour. They want to write it originally. So we came up with strange concepts like men writing and women writing and all that, even in literature. And when this literary study falls into a theory in the 20th century, feminism or feministic theory, it falls. We have feminism being connected again to colonial studies, post-colonial studies, the structural studies or the Marxist studies, so psychoanalytical studies. So it is again an umbrella here that feministic theory or feministic approach or a research cannot be taken independently. So how does it affect all other areas also? Feminism is associated with sociology as to how a woman evolved as a modern woman from the past ages. Then in the cultural studies, like how women in different religions, races, creeds and class constructs evolved as a woman. And feminism as a theory is related to psychoanalysis also. How the psyche of the woman was ruled by the woman and how she is trying to get rid of this. For example, we have Ibsen's Dollhouse and we have Henry James, the portrait of a lady going into the psyche of a woman. This is how we get in the psychoanalytic theory to the literary criticism. And then the economic feminism approach to economy. How is woman trying to be financially independent as a job holder or as an entrepreneur, which is very much there in the metropolis today. We see women entrepreneurs rising. When it comes to feminine aesthetics as a theory, she knocks the doors of philosophy and asks the questions like, why is it that the philosophers have not focused any light on the aesthetic aspect of a woman? Like there have been in the past many painters, many dancers, or many musicians, or many women artists in the field of fine arts. There have been many great literary people also. And why hasn't philosophy in the concern of aesthetic focused light on those people? And why is it that only in the 20th century, after the feministic movements, that these people are trying to focus on these areas? Is kind of again struggle going on with the feminists with the philosophical and aesthetic aspects of their life. So this is how we apply feministic theories one by one to every field. And our concern being students of literature, our concern being how feminism is acting in the field of literary criticism. As I told you, we have to have a knowledge of these three waves and then come down to the study till Jhumpa Lahari. And also the budding feministic theories are quite strange. Like we have the body feminism, we have the mind feminism, we have the spirit feminism, we have the marital feminism, and we have the divorce feminism. And there are so many things related to the waters of her life. They're so deep rooted, and a woman is trying to explore. She's not only critically looking at the man or the society, but she is trying to explore herself. Since after the third wave she has achieved what she should. Now her focus is not whether what man is giving or what man is taking from her. Her focus is solely on herself as a woman, trying to evolve how much happier she can be in the present situation, how much she can work on herself independently without the interference of man. This is how she is looking at herself with the budding feminist theories. So we have to very sensitively, very sensibly look at the feministic theories without having any tug of war with the men. Because when it comes to India, we see that the feministic movement in India did not start with women. It started with men rather. From the time of Raja Ram Mohan Roy, we have Gandhi, and then Jyoti Phule, and then Savitribai Phule. So men have been contributing to feministic approaches in India. We have the stories of Savitri Satyavan, where Savitri played a major role in bringing back her dead husband to life. Or if we go to Aurobindo Ghosh's the recreation of Savitri's stories, the feministic approach that our Indian authors have had, and then the Gandhian approach to feminism we have. The writings of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa or Vivekananda all focus on the power or the creativity of a woman. So in India, it's quite a different issue. Of course, we have the domestic violence here, but the movement that we find in America or UK is quite different from the kind of feminism that we have in India. So it is not like we should follow the feminists of a certain country, because the contemporary social contextual situations being different, we must focus at feminism from the region that they belong to. So this is how, dear students, we must have an approach to the feministic theories and the study of feminism. Hope you all understood what I really meant to tell you. Next, again we will come up with the feministic theories in detail one by one. Thank you.